Real Madrid made it seem like Arsenal were ready to conquer Europe. But football is not a fairy tale, and Paris Saint-Germain reminded everyone of that fact. Just 4 minutes after kickoff, the French giants launched a lightning counterattack that left Mikel Arteta's men stunned at the Emirates. The second leg in Paris felt like an all-out counteroffensive. On the eve of the battle, Arsenal's coaching staff held an emergency tactical meeting. Every player, every tactical detail was analyzed thoroughly, and the first report brought huge relief. Thomas Partey was back. With Partey on the pitch from the start of the season, Arsenal conceded less than 1 goal per match on average in the Champions League. Without him, that number nearly doubled. In the first leg against Paris, the central midfield, usually Partey's domain, was breached after just 4 minutes. Thomas Partey is not just the midfield anchor. He is the engine of the entire system. He brings stability, allows Declan Rice to focus on breaking up play, opens space for Odegaard to create, and most importantly, shields the center backs behind him. Partey's return was Arsenal's first tactical order of business, a clear message sent to PSG. Controlling the central area was their top priority. Without Partey, that zone had been freely exploited by Dembele and PSG's quick, seamless passing sequences. In that match, Declan Rice was tasked with anchoring the midfield, but Rice is not Partey, and the difference was evident in the numbers. With Partey on the field, Arsenal allowed fewer than 8 shots per game. Without him, that figure nearly doubled. Few midfielders in Europe can match Thomas Partey's blend of durability and all-round quality. But his greatest value is not in stats. Partey brings balance. He holds the team's structure together, a key to Arsenal's composure during transitions. With Partey setting the rhythm, Rice is free to push higher and disrupt play early. Odegaard, in turn, can operate closer to goal without having to drop deep to help defensively. Let us not forget, the win over Real Madrid was Arsenal's peak of control. But the loss to PSG served as a costly reminder. Without Partey, the midfield became chaotic and unable to dictate tempo. Partey is the shield in front of the defense and the compass for the team, knowing when to sit deep and when to push forward to break the press. Since the start of the season, Partey has had a passing accuracy of 91% under pressure, the highest in the squad. Among midfielders with fewer than 1,000 minutes in this Champions League campaign, he faced the highest pressure per touch. That is no coincidence. Partey does not play flashy football, but he is the kind of player every elite system needs to chase glory. Now that Partey is back, belief is stirring again at Arsenal. The midfield is restored, the tactical spine redefined. If it took losing the first leg to get a fully fit Partey in Paris, that is a price worth paying. And then, word arrived from the Paris camp. Ousmane Dembele, the man who wreaked havoc in the first leg, was struggling with fitness and might not play. Remember, in just the opening 45 minutes at the Emirates, Dembele ran more than 6 kilometers, not to score, but to stretch Arsenal's defense. He was the catalyst that pulled Declan Rice and Jurrien Timber out of position, opening a deadly gap on flank A1, where PSG struck just 4 minutes in. Without Dembele, PSG would lose a vital cog in their ball circulation system. They would lose their disruptor, the one who scrambled pressing lines with constant movement. That is Arsenal's chance to reclaim control of Zone A1, the pressure point that collapsed too soon in the first leg. The left wing is now the key. That is where Martinelli can exploit the space Dembele would have occupied, especially with PSG's defense patched together. Do not forget, 38% of their goals conceded this season have come from set pieces and wide areas. With Partey covering the middle, Rice can press higher, and Odegaard is free to roam forward without having to track back as he did before. This is not just a second leg. It is a defining battle. If Arsenal can strike early at Parc des Princes, they can flip the script, the same way PSG did to them in London. When the opponent's commander steps back, the Gunners must charge forward and take control. But dominating the midfield alone is not enough. Arsenal must break PSG's smart pressing structure, a tilted diamond formation where Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz, João Neves, and wide players trap the ball. As soon as it goes wide, they swarm the zone, forcing Arsenal into rushed long passes or central turnover. In the first leg, Arsenal were forced to clear long 17 times, completely opposite to their controlled possession style. But now, with Partey's return, the midfield triangle can finally function. Partey holds position, Rice pushes up, Odegaard bursts into life again. The role of young Lino Sousa will also be crucial. He is expected to break pressing traps with tight space control. If Arsenal can escape PSG's press, the space behind opens up, ideal for line-breaking passes or direct attacks they used to dismantle Real Madrid and Liverpool. Paris Saint-Germain are never easy to beat, but if there is a moment to turn the tide, it is now, with the chaos maker sidelined. And when the whistle blows in Paris, if Arsenal go forward like real warriors, they will no longer be the hunted, they will be the hunters. The truth on the pitch is plain to see. Both Mikel Merino and Declan Rice were pulled out of position too easily. Without Thomas Partey anchoring the center, Arsenal's midfield was like a runaway train, strong but out of control. Dembele, João Neves, and Kvaratskhelia all attacked that gap, while Odegaard had to fall deep to defend, breaking the link to Saka and Martinelli. So the question is, how can Arsenal move the ball past the midfield danger zone? First, Partey's return is the strategic key. He brings rhythm, balance, and frees Rice from playing the firefighter role. With Partey in the middle, Rice can push up and support Odegaard. That creates small triangles for quick, smooth escapes from pressure. Secondly, Arsenal must initiate reverse pressing. Do not allow Paris Saint-Germain the time to establish their rhythm. Every time they lose possession, the Gunners need to immediately press to regain control and stop the counterattack before it begins. Thirdly, Lino Sousa will be a crucial figure. In the first leg, he showcased exceptional awareness against pressing and made lightning-quick decisions. When he drifted into the center, he created a 2-against-1 scenario with Partey and Rice to bypass PSG's pressing layers. Fourthly, the flanks are the lifelines. Saka must receive the ball through surprise switches of play, rather than being left to take on 3 defenders on his own. Martinelli needs to be pushed higher up the pitch early, avoiding deep positions where he would be trapped by the speed of Hakimi and Nuno Mendes. Once Partey sets the tempo, Rice becomes the right hand, Lino's opens escape routes, and Odegaard acts as the final playmaker. Then Arsenal's ball progression can pierce through Paris's danger zones. If they can break that pressing line, Arsenal will return to the football they do best: quick, instinctive, and clinical counterattacks. When PSG push their line high, the space behind Mendes and Hakimi is always there. But the final obstacle is Gianluigi Donnarumma. 6 clean sheets, 26 saves, and exceptional spatial awareness. To break that wall, Arsenal cannot keep relying on hopeful crosses or wait for a rebound. They need precision, decisiveness, and finishing instincts. 1-touch, 2-touch passing followed by swift shots when the moment comes. It does not have to be pretty. It just needs to be effective. A flash of brilliance is enough to disrupt PSG's well-organized defense. It must also be said that Paris often leaves space between the lines when pressing high. That is fertile ground if Arsenal are clever enough to exploit it. They have found those gaps before, but their efforts ended in the phrase almost. Martinelli once beat Hakimi for pace. Trossard once lit up the Emirates. But all efforts stopped at one name: Donnarumma. Should they keep attacking the wings? The answer is absolutely yes, because even if they have not scored from it yet, it remains PSG's most visible weakness. With just a bit more sharpness, a touch more composure, and a perfectly timed strike, everything could change. The tactic is set, the plan is clear. Now is the time for Arsenal to execute it. They must be decisive, cold-blooded, and capitalize on even the tiniest lapse. Behind Hakimi lies open space. Behind Mendes, there is opportunity, and ahead of Donnarumma stands a challenge only true courage can overcome. That is the area where, if Thomas Partey reaches peak form, he can deliver through balls that cut like a blade. All it takes is one moment where the opponent steps out of position, one delicate chip, and a teammate making the perfect run. Arsenal have the tools to recreate what they did to Real Madrid. The issue is not finding the weakness, it is breaking through the final layer of armor. Gianluigi Donnarumma might have halted the Gunners in the first leg, but he is not the reason to abandon a thoroughly prepared attacking plan. One weak spot may seem harmless, but hit it again and again with the right force and it will eventually break, and this time it must break. Meanwhile, a far more worrying threat is emerging: set pieces. Without Gabriel, Arsenal have lost their primary shield in aerial battles. In his absence, they have conceded from a throw-in in a corner in their last 2 matches. With 12 goals conceded from set pieces in the Premier League this season, Arsenal now rank as the 6th worst team at defending dead ball situations. In a do-or-die clash like the one in Paris, that cannot be overlooked. The coaching staff know full well they need to urgently rebuild their aerial defense. Mikel Arteta, William Saliba, and Declan Rice must all become part of a counter-air unit to secure the skies in front of goal as if it were restricted airspace. Missing Gabriel means Arsenal have lost their top radar, their most dominant aerial presence, and their first responder to danger. From the defeat to Bournemouth to the slip against Crystal Palace, everything seems to trace back to one missing name: Gabriel. What was once praised as a rock-solid defensive system now shows alarming cracks. However, war is not for those who have everything, but for those who know how to adapt. Saliba may not be as physically imposing as Gabriel, but he has strong positional awareness and solid jumping ability. Rice can act as a second line of defense, while Marino has the height and intelligence to contribute in both attack and defense. The key point is this: PSG are not flawless either. They have allowed opponents to create 28 set-piece chances in the Champions League alone, more than Arsenal. Marino's disallowed goal in the first leg proves that the Parc des Princes is no fortress. And let us not forget that Saka once beat them with a direct free kick back in October. But the question remains, are Arsenal sharp enough? Without Gabriel, every corner becomes a gamble. David Raya no longer radiates the confidence he did early in the season, so should they keep using set pieces as a weapon? Yes, but they must be smarter and more varied. No more lofted, hopeful crosses. Arsenal must turn to deceptive routines, short passes to draw defenders out, low-drummed deliveries, or shots from the edge of the box. They can no longer rely on a single target man. They must trust in a whole system that adjusts and adapts with every pressing wave. In Paris, there is no room for error. A single set piece can save a dream or end it. Gabriel may be absent, but the team cannot crumble. This battle demands that those who remain fight even harder. They have faltered before due to one missing link. Now is the time to rebuild, to patch every hole, and to reinforce the entire structure. PSG are still dangerous. Donnarumma still stands tall between the posts. Hakimi is still ready to charge like an arrow. The pressing traps will not disappear. But sometimes, to erase a painful memory, you must return to the very battlefield where you once fell, and write a new chapter with your own 2 feet. May 8th will not be just a second leg. It will be the match that defines Arsenal's entire season. And in moments like these, only one thing matters more than all tactics combined: character.